What's going on, everybody? This is Will Harvey today with the Wealth Junkies Show. And typically, Brandon would be doing the introduction, but he's not here today, so you guys are stuck with me. So I apologize for that. Today on the show, we have Jodi Daniels, and she is a 19-year corporate veteran. About 2 years ago, she opened her own consultancy. And what she does is she helps companies build trust with customers while being compliant with global privacy laws. So it's pretty awesome stuff that she's doing. She also is a national keynote speaker. So it's really, really exciting to have her on here. And two girls and a loving husband and a dog named Basil. They live in Atlanta, Georgia. Is that right, Jodi?
Yep, we're here.
Yep. Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, with that, Jodi, thanks so much for coming on the show. Can you just give the listeners a little bit more about your background and what got you to where you are today?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me. And
Sure.
for everyone tuning in, really glad that you've joined today. So a little bit more about me. I got to Atlanta, honestly, from Emory University. So here in Atlanta, I graduated with a business degree and in accounting. And from there, I kind of just followed the path I was supposed to be doing. So I got a job at Deloitte in the audit group. Was an accountant. Everyone told me you're really not an accountant. From there, I made the hop to the Home Depot, where I did finance work, and I also went back to school and got an MBA at the same time. So I did full-time work and full-time school. And from there, I made a transition into strategy. And that was fun for a while. I made the next hop to Cox Enterprises, where I spent almost a decade. And Cox Enterprises is a big media conglomerate across the US. I worked on strategy, and then I worked at autotrader.com, which is a subsidiary, and I did behavioral targeting ads. So I stalked you for cars. And if anyone listening bought a car, or their family bought a car off AutoTrader, you're welcome. But from there, that's how I got into privacy, because no one in my company was paying attention full time to it. I was looking for something else, and I thought, well, this is an opportunity. I created my own role and knew like just a teeny bit about privacy, but I learned. And long story, I then built a privacy program from scratch at Cox Automotive. And in each of the roles I had, I was a bit of an entrepreneur in big, huge companies. And it gave me a lot of skills that I use today on the outside. The next hop after building that program is I went to Bank of America, big, huge mega company, highly regulated, strong privacy program. And that was really helpful to be able to go from nothing, try and figure it out on my own, to having a program kind of created, and I could learn from how it's often done. And after 19 years, literally to the day of my very first job, because the accountant in me remembers that, I said, I'm kind of done. I think I always knew I didn't want to stay in corporate forever. And it was all my job hops were trying to figure out what is it I want to do. And I kept finding the next thing that was interesting, but not enough to truly sustain me forever. And I decided I wanted more flexibility in my family. I had 2 elementary school kids, and it was just time to do something different. And I made kind of a line in the sand that said, by the time they started school in 2017, I was going to leave. And wow. I did. And Red Clover Advisors was born, which is my privacy consultancy. And I haven't looked back since.
That is awesome. That's quite the background. So it sounds like you've been at some big companies. You went from Deloitte to Cox to BOA. Those are some big names.
Exactly. All big names. And now I work with tiny companies all the way to big names. Kind of everybody.
Okay. Everybody in between. So when you were doing that, were you having fun doing it? I mean, were you enjoying what you were doing, and that next, every time you jumped into something new?
I love creating something new, and I love the challenge of not knowing what I'm doing and trying to navigate and figure that out. Then it would wear off because I figured it out. And in a large corporation, it's really hard to move. You're kind of stuck, and you have to find the next space. Now in a large company, there's a lot more roles, but it's also just very hard to move. You're often, this is your role, and stay in that box and have to do a lot to try and find the next spot. So it was challenging and it was fun at the beginning. And then I found myself bored and always needing to figure out what that next step was and never really knowing what it is I wanted to do. I'd spend a lot of time just having informational conversations with people, exploring what do you do all day. I was always super curious. A building could be filled with thousands of people. What is it that these people do all day
Mm,
long? And who are all of them? And what are their roles? And how did they get there? And do they like what they're doing? And what's the next spot for me? I was always asking those questions, meeting a lot of people and trying to figure out which one of those sounds fun for me.
got it. Okay. And when you built that, you kind of built something from scratch, right? Within, was it Cox?
Yes, actually a few times. A lot of my roles have been from scratch. When I was at
Okay.
Auto Trader and we built the marketing product, which was behavioral targeting, but kind of imagine before Facebook ads. So right today you're shopping for something online
Yeah.
and poof, it magically appears in your Facebook feed. Uh, we did that before Facebook was really doing it out. When you'd go and look at a news site, here's the car that you were looking at, or maybe a competitor car that Honda
So,
maybe
so
trying to make.
tell us how that works, because I always think that, I have my phone right here, and you're exactly right. I'm sure people out there have done this where they start looking for, I remember when I bought a car last year or 2 years ago, and I was a Chevy Tahoe, and all these ads for Chevy Tahoes started popping up. And I started to think that my phone was recording what I was talking about, what I was saying when I was
Yeah.
talking to my
So when I
girlfriend.
did
And
it 10, 11, actually like 11 years ago, 11, 12 years ago,
yeah.
it was much simpler than it is today. Today, there are hundreds of companies in the process. Almost imagine a stock exchange for ads,
Oh, wow.
inventory, and all the companies and everything in between. When I started, it was just not nearly as complicated. But it all boils down to, I'm sure you've heard of cookies
Yeah.
that drop on your computer.
I don't
Basically,
know what
there's
they do,
tags.
but yeah, I've heard of
Well,
them.
there's a bunch of tags that websites have, and when you went to a site looking at that Chevy Tahoe, a cookie dropped that said, this computer is looking at this type car. And when you'd go to another website, it had another tag that said, oh, well, hold on, which ad should I serve? It goes through its algorithm and it decides, I'm going to serve that Chevy Tahoe ad. And so you would get the Chevy Tahoe ad. Let's pretend I was looking at a Toyota Highlander. I would get the Toyota Highlander ad.
Wow.
Now, at the same time, Ford might have come along and said, I want to target people who are looking for Chevy Tahoes. You
Uh,
might actually have seen a Ford Explorer ad, so they could
I'm sure I
compete
did.
against the Chevy Tahoe.
Wow, that's interesting. So you built something like that out at Auto Trader when you were there.
I did, yes.
Wow, that's
And it was interesting. It was fun. It was marketing. And nowadays, I do believe that the phones are listening. It's a completely different world. And the privacy piece comes in because some people think it's completely fine that you've just targeted me a Chevy Tahoe ad or a Ford Explorer ad.
right.
Other people say, I'm not really okay with you doing that. What did you tell me you're doing that? Do I have choices? What if I don't want you to do that anymore? What if you keep thinking I want Chevy Tahoe and that was just because I was looking up the car that my friend got? How can I turn this thing off? That's
Right.
all privacy. And some of the questions that were starting to come up when I first got into this field, and that was nearly a decade ago.
Okay, got it. Now, when you develop something like that, when you develop the thing at Cox, you mentioned that you're an entrepreneur, and I've never heard that term before, but
Oh,
I assume it means you're within a company and you're kind of doing stuff that's innovative and bringing new ideas to the table for the company. And so when you do something like that, you build out this process. Do you monetize off of that? Is there a way that you get paid for that?
me personally, no. That
No.
my
Okay.
my job was create this product, make it work.
Got it. So now I can see why you're out on your own
It's much
doing
more
what you're
fun out
doing.
here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you get paid for your ideas, which is
I do. At the same time, the lessons I learned and the relationships I built and the kind of credibility that I earned
yeah.
is all extremely valuable right now.
Mm, I'm sure. Yeah. So can you just explain to us a little bit more once you got to that point in 2017 where you knew that you were going to jump out, you knew you were going to break away from the corporate America job and all that. Just tell us how you prepared for that, what you did to set aside money, how you funded your business, just all the steps you took to get everything going.
Sure. I spent a long time networking and talking to people about what I thought my services should be. And when you have those conversations, you naturally realize what you think is not actually what the
Mm,
market is looking for. And after enough conversations, people kept asking me about, for starters, I was all about trying to have feeding conversations. And what I was hoping to build were relationships, and people would think of me to bring me in, right? And I was trying to build that network that might be able to feed me clients and partnerships and things like that. Well, there was a law that came out, and you had to comply by May 25th, 2018, and it was called GDPR. In 2017 was when it was getting a lot of news and a lot of press, and companies were starting to understand, oh, there's this GDPR thing. And for anyone who's not familiar with GDPR, you probably are familiar with the cookie banners that you see all over the internet today. That is actually in part due to GDPR. There's a lot of other things, but that's at least sort of the first precursor. Anyways, when I was talking to people, they
well,
kept bringing
what
that
is
up.
it? What is that? I understand. It's
So
something in Europe,
GDPR,
right?
it's the new EU,
Okay.
European Union privacy law, and it is a big deal for companies who are trying to serve a global audience. You can be a solo blogger in the United States trying to have a global audience, and you have to deal with GDPR. You do
Oh,
not have to
wow.
have a physical office in Europe to have to deal with it. It affected companies globally, and it kind of took a lot of companies by surprise just because they were very focused and myopic in the United States. And in 2017, companies were starting to realize, oh, wait, I have to comply with this. And as I was having conversations, they kept asking me, well, can you help with GDPR? Can you help with GDPR? I knew a little bit about GDPR, and I studied and I learned a lot more. I learned about as much as many of the other people in the United States who also were all learning. And I started to make that an area of focus. And when you kind of niche down, people begin to know, oh, you're known for that thing. And from there, I spoke, I educated, and I helped clients comply, and it kind of kept building from there. To your question of, well, how did I prepare to leave? I had lots of those kinds of conversations. And I honestly had one conversation that would let me subcontract. And it wasn't going to be, so I could consult as a subcontractor to another firm, just enough, just a little bit to kind of get me a couple months of comfort while I could continue to build on my own. It was by no means a full salary. It actually didn't even start for several months, but it was enough of the little bit of cushion I needed to jump to give me the faith that I could figure this out. And again, it was, not a full-time anything. The beauty of a bit of a service business or an information business, I don't need much capital. I don't have
Okay.
an office. I don't need to buy plants. I don't have inventory. I have my time, my knowledge, a few software services.
Got it.
It was really easy for me to get started. Obviously, from a financial standpoint, I needed to make sure that I had enough money to be able to build a pipeline. And most service businesses, they say it takes about 12 to 18 months to really build the pipeline. And I'd
Okay.
say that's true. That's about really what it took. I ensured I'd be comfortable with what I needed to live off of and pay all my expenses and be able to do that.
Got it. Okay. Well, mentally, how did you? Because you said that you didn't need to raise money. You didn't need to. There weren't a ton of expenses out of the gate, other than your time.
Right.
But what mentally, how did you prepare for that? Because you're in corporate America for 19 years. I'm sure you were making decent money. So how did you
Yeah, I mean, a
mentally
lot of
prepare
people
for it?
think you're crazy when you leave,
Right.
especially at that level. You leave a
Exactly.
really nice job, and I left everything. And some people think, what are you doing?
You're right. They think you're nuts.
They do. But that's not all that there is. There's so much more. And to me,
I
I
love that.
wanted control. I wanted freedom. I wanted flexibility. I wanted the challenge. I thrive on the challenge, and I felt like this just wasn't the right place. And it's truly just really believing in yourself. I mean, I'm sure everyone here has heard that 1,000 times. It's something you have to keep believing. It's not like, oh, poof, you believed it, you left, and you're set forever. It keeps coming back. Uh, the ability for me to have that little subcontract kind of floor was a bit of the piece I needed to lift me over the edge and say, there's just going to be this little thing that might help me along the way build it up. And that worked really well. I also met some amazing professionals, learned a significant amount consulting, and it was kind of a win-win for all parties. And that was really what I needed, was just that little bit of a push. And once you're out, now you have to make it work. Now, I think it also takes a certain kind of person. You have to have self-drive. You have to be curious. You have to be
Right.
adaptable. You have to really want it. It is hard work to make. You can easily have a lifestyle business, which is, just kind of earn enough money to cover whatever expenses you're looking for. But I'm looking to really build a business. And that means I'm working fairly hard at building a brand and building a name
Right.
and bringing on people and the systems and all of those types of
Wow.
things. And that fulfills me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So what would you say to the person out there that's thinking of doing something similar to what you're doing, or maybe something completely different in a way different industry, and they're being met with friends, family, all those people that are saying, I don't know if I do that. Are you sure about this? Have you thought this through? Are you on drugs? Are you, what would you say to that person?
I would say, as a person who has 2 business degrees, right, undergrad and grad, there's some math that you really have to do. I am not the biggest risk taker, and I feel like you got to put some pencil to paper to make sure you can make this work. Imagine you didn't get the income you need. Can you make that work? And for how long can you survive that way? And once you kind of do that, then you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? Keep digging. Well, why do you want to go out on your own? Well, because I'm tired of my company. Well, okay, why are you tired of your company? What if you found a different company? You kind of have to keep digging
Yeah.
into the why, because it's the why that it's going to get you up every day and push you. I once had an entrepreneur tell me Monday morning was her favorite day.
Mm,
Most corporate people hate Monday morning and they live for Friday.
that's right.
Entrepreneurs are excited about Monday and work all the time because they're so motivated to want to do it.
Right.
You have to have that fire. And, if friends and family are questioning, they often have your best interest at heart, but then also look to who they are. What kind of risks have they taken? Their
Bingo.
experience might be very different. What our parents did or grandparents did is going to be vastly different. And people have different experiences. I have some friends who would never want to do what I do. They are totally happy in their job. They go to work 9 to 5. They are
Right.
happy as a clam. They think I'm crazy. I want nothing to do with what they're doing. And I would know I can't take that, I would have to be thoughtful of the advice that they're giving me and the perspective that they're coming from, and recognizing the point of view that they're providing that advice from.
Amen. That was all so good. I mean, especially, doing the math ahead of time, just not being reckless, not going out and just saying, I'm going to quit, burn the ships, and I have no plan. And, I have $5,000 to my name. And that's just a little bit
Yeah, I
reckless.
mean, there's definitely people, you hear those
Oh,
stories.
I know.
It's just not me or my
Yeah.
story. I'm a little bit more methodical. I mean, I started my career as an accountant, so I'm gonna have to
Right.
still use those basic principles here.
You're a numbers
Um,
and logic
I'm a
type of
numbers and
person.
logic, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you kind of have to just, I mean, I took a risk. I kind of left with literally no client. I didn't have like a signed client or a signed piece of paper that on day one, here I go.
Yeah.
I left believing it would happen, um, and then made it work.
That's
Um,
awesome. And that's something you said something else that I've loved. And this is something that I struggled with. I was in the mortgage business, and it was a, multiple 6-figure a year thing. And it was great. It was W-2, but at the end of the day, I was not fulfilled. I didn't like what I was doing. And when I was getting the itch to do something else, I talked to people, and they would all tell me I'm nuts. And they would just say, "Eesh, I don't know about that. Think it through more, blah, blah, blah." And I almost started listening to those people, and I never should have. Looking back in hindsight, the ones that would say, I don't know if I do that, I don't know if that's a good idea, I should have never even asked those people because they were not in a position where I wanted anything that they had. They had never taken a risk. They had never done really anything that I had wanted to do. And then the people that had those true entrepreneurial types, I would ask them and they'd be like, "Oh man, I think that's a great idea. That's
Right.
sounds like you've thought this through." It sounds, yeah. So, so that's a great point that you made.
Yeah. So one of the things I've also done in the last year is really try and surround myself by other entrepreneurs
Mm,
because they think different and they help navigate the various different challenges that entrepreneurs have, which is different. I mean, you hear people say you need a coach, you need a mentor, and what you need that person for in a corporate role is going to be different from what you need in an entrepreneurial role. And so I have identified peers who can help serve me as well as entrepreneurs who are ahead of me, right? They've built successful businesses and what can
yeah.
I learn from them? And that's been extremely valuable as well.
And are those people, those mentors that are doing other things, are they in different industries or are they in the same industry as you?
Oh, different industries.
Different. Okay. But
I
it,
mean, I
but
have
it,
peers and colleagues in my industry, but
yeah.
from a business mentoring kind of thing, they're all different.
But it's all kind of the same thing at the end of the day. You know, building a business is building a business. You have a different audience, you have a different client, you have all that is different from industry to industry. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of similarities. Is that right?
It is, and I have to say, people would say that, and I didn't really get it or believe it. I was a little hesitant. I didn't understand how could someone who has a retail store or sells something completely different from me understand my B2B consulting business. And
Right.
actually, they do.
Yeah.
They
And,
really
and
do.
that's pretty cool, isn't it?
It is. It's really
Yeah.
fascinating how you can truly learn from all different types of business people. And I had to open myself up and realize that I was a little bit too narrow and kind of
Yeah.
naive when I first started. And I'm glad that I've opened myself up.
That's awesome. After you started, just describe some of the challenges, some of the wins that you had, and everything leading up to where you are now.
Some of the challenges is it's really hard because I didn't make investments in tools and other people. Starting out, I needed this was my business. I had to find the work and do the work. And that's really, really hard. It would be easier if you can find the work and hand it off for someone else to do, but you can't really do that if you're just building and you also need that income to live off of. It's, a bit of a
Yep.
hamster wheel. That is one of the biggest challenges. And I would find I worked all the time at all different times of.
You wore a lot of hats.
You wear 1,000 different hats.
Right.
And
That whole EMyth thing, the book, the EMyth. Yeah. Anyways,
yeah, it's
you wear
true.
all
You're
the
wearing
hats.
a lot of hats. And that's been honestly the biggest challenge. And then you want to do all these other things, but how do you get that done? And so then you want to go and hire someone, even just a marketing person to help. But you got to figure out the time to carve out to do that. And that's taking away from all the other things. Eventually, as I just like old fashioned hard work got through all of that, I was able to hire some people to help me do part of the things that I don't do as well. I don't do them as quickly. And I started, to bring on kind of some part-time consultants to help me do that. I really almost never have done a lot of the marketing. I've generally hired different people. Now, part of the challenge has been hiring the people and finding who can help me do this post or create that website. That's an area I don't want to learn that the way like nuts and bolts technically to do it.
Right.
It would take me longer than it would for me to just find someone and that's what they do all day long. I'm a big fan
Exactly.
of find the people who do what it is that they do.
I
There's a reason why they do it.
totally,
I should not be
exactly.
a jack of all trades. And
I
when
totally
money
agree.
is small, it's hard to do that. Everyone wants to do it all themselves to save some money. And that was another big hurdle is you had to have the philosophy of I have to spend a little to get it back. Now I've still been, I haven't spent like a huge amount. Maybe if I spent more, it would come back, but I'm sort of slowly there and continuing to invest. And when I keep investing in other people to help do it, it's freeing up my time to be able to keep moving other things. So now what I'm focused on is really trying to build out project management components and pieces to it and bring on some more tools and software and just really make it more hum and flow. And what's been kind of cool is now other people are sending me people, hey, do you have capacity? Here's a great person. They're looking for some work.
Oh, that's cool. So they know that
Yeah,
you're expanding and growing.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's really fun. And some of the wins are, I've signed a Fortune 100 company. That was really
No
exciting.
kidding.
I've signed some companies where I really only had one or two clients, and they took a leap of faith with me, and that's a really humbling, exciting feeling. The best is when a client refers you to somebody else and says,
Yeah.
"Gosh, these people are so valuable." And when you have clients come year after year, that's really exciting too. I mean, I had one client say, "Well, I think what you proposed is great, but I feel like we need to do more. So what else should we be doing? Like, I want more. Give me more."
No
Um,
kidding.
and the ability to, this past year, 2019, I did a lot of speaking around the country. In my field, it's very important to educate and explain, what are these privacy laws? Why do I need to comply? What does it mean to me? How does it help my business? Lots of education.
Yeah,
And in the
myself and everybody else around me has no clue about any of this.
Right.
So yeah,
And that's very common. It's, what is this and why do I care and how is it going to help my business and how could it harm my business if I don't comply? Hint, hint, you can lose sales because businesses will only do business now with companies who comply. Um, so lots of education, and that I've been able to get asked to speak around the country has been really also a wonderful experience.
that's incredible.
I'm
That's
very,
awesome. So
very,
how did
grateful.
tell us about that first speaking engagement, how it came about and how it went?
I love public speaking. I have,
Okay.
when we were talking before, you were sharing your story of how you sold golf balls at 7. I remember in 3rd grade wanting to be the person to go up to the podium and share my story. I
Wow.
just,
Well, that makes one of us.
I love talking in front of people. And my dad is the same way. He's a huge, um, he can light up a room when
That's
he
cool.
speaks. And, I don't even know if I can remember my very first one, but I've done a lot of local ones. I got connected with some fellow colleagues speaking at the Georgia State Bar, which really helped create some credibility. And then I spoke to some marketing associations locally, which then led me to a national, like their national version in another city, that then led me to a national marketing conference. I got connected to this other conference, and then that like just kind of snowballed,
Yeah.
sort of the one
And your network kind
one
of
after another.
right. It's that whole 7 degrees of separation where somebody can connect you with somebody who would want a speaker,
Right.
and it's that whole network is your net worth type of
Right.
thing.
And you just never know what's going to happen. So I literally last night spoke to a group of agency owners. And I mean, it was a small group of maybe just 5 people. And so some people might say, well, that's only 5 people. I'm not going to go, why would I talk to 5 people? But in that group of people, someone said, I already have a referral for you. These are all the different things that we do.
Wow.
I can see the value that you bring. I might even be able to use some of their services. You just never know. And
That's
someone else had
awesome.
shared with me, don't turn down an opportunity because you just truly never know. One of the ones that I spoke to was a Rotary Club. I didn't get a single anything business wise from that. However, Rotary meant something to me personally. My dad was a Rotarian as a young girl. I remember going to lunch with him, and I shared that on social media. I can't tell you how much traction that social media post got. It was real, it was
Really?
authentic, it was true. Um, and I got that because I gave my time to go speak to a group of people who give their time. And it's all
Right.
about, and I just genuinely came to share my story about how good it felt. And it brought me back to when I was a little girl going with my dad and how honored I was to be able to do that. And sort of the goodwill I think that brings with people and the memory, and then it keeps cascading forward.
That's so cool. So you just never know where something's going to come from, and I totally agree with that. Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything, but I remember, just in my mortgage days, there were some things where I'd get referrals and they would just come from nowhere, and every time that you say, there's probably nothing's going to come from this, it's
It's
usually
exactly what I
those it's usually
felt.
those ones where the most things come from. So it's
Yep,
pretty
you're
cool how
exactly
that
right.
works. Yeah. So moving forward, what's the vision for your business and everything moving forward?
So the vision for the business is to really make it kind of a triad of training, really helping companies and provide privacy training. Many of these laws actually require it. And I'm not talking about kind of the software version. There's many software wonderful versions. I'm talking about more of the in-person workshop kind, really helping companies understand, and tactically talking to people
Oh,
one-on-one
wow.
about what it is that they need. So really being able to deliver more in-person training, continuing on the consulting side, so helping companies on a consultant basis. And I'd really love to be able to continue speaking at a national level and to be able to continue to grow that piece. And on the consulting side, I offer project work and I offer fractional privacy work. Imagine, a CFO,
Okay.
fractional CFO or
Yeah.
fractional CMO. The same idea of a fractional privacy officer. Many companies don't need a full-time person. They just need a part-time person. I can do the project work, and then I can also do the fractional privacy work, and in the consulting side, continuing to ramp that up where I have other consultants to help deliver that work.
That's awesome. It sounds like
That's
you have
cool.
a good plan and you're well on your way to doing that. I'm sure you're going to get plenty of speaking engagements and that's all exciting stuff. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to jump into our moments of truth questions here,
Sure.
and it's the same 7 questions that we ask everyone that comes on the show, and I'm just going to kick it off.
All
So,
right.
who is your success role model?
And I know I should have all these answers. I think I don't have a particular person. I really don't. But to me, there's so many entrepreneurs that I admire. And it's not so much the people in a big corporation, because oftentimes you kind of can just sort of luck your way and find the right person. And I don't always believe the right people are in those roles. But to me, it's an entrepreneur who has gone through the up and down emotional roller coaster and had successful businesses. And there's so many
It's so
successful
true.
entrepreneurs. Um, I don't have a particular name, but just kind of
No,
any
that's a great
any of them.
answer. I love that. A lot of people say Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or whoever, but that was such a good
Yeah,
answer
no,
about
I
how.
also have a bunch of interesting personality traits. And to me, I need the whole person.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally. That's awesome. So next question: what is your biggest success?
I think so. A couple, I think is really important. Some people work to
Yep,
live, people live to work. I don't live to work, so my family is extremely important to me, and literally
that's a great answer.
that was a feat to be able to make that all happen. So that's a really big piece. And professionally, it's literally that I left corporate. I made it work. I'm here 2+ years later, and I'm on a growth trajectory. That
That's
is really exciting.
that is exciting, and I assume that your husband was supportive of all that and
Super
stood behind it.
supportive
That's great.
long before I was ready to go.
Yeah, that's so
I was the
important.
slowpoke on the journey.
Yeah, it's so important. I've met people that there's this one guy I know, and he used to be really involved in real estate, flipping houses and buying rental properties and doing all that stuff. And he doesn't really do it anymore, and he kind of lives vicariously through me. We'll have lunch, and it's so funny. He's like a kid in a candy store. He's like, what are you working on? What are you doing? What are you what's going on? And he's explained that his wife is just so conservative and doesn't like to do any of that stuff, and he's just had to stop doing it because it's such a point of contention with them.
Oh,
So
that is a shame.
yeah,
No, I have
so
full support, and I think that's really
that's
important.
awesome. Yep.
You
So
have
and
to
I
have
I
full
totally
support
agree.
because it's not an uphill climb. Every day is not that way. There's
Exactly.
definitely valleys.
That's exactly right. So what's a typical day for you look like?
Ha. I wake up around 6-ish, get some little kids off to school. And so between getting 2 kids dressed and off to school and a dog along the way, I generally start my day between 8 and 9. Kind of every day is a little bit different. Sometimes
Okay.
it's early morning, sometimes not. It's like today, literally, I am jam packed with calls from 9 to 5.
Oh
Totally
wow.
jam packed. And then I turn kind of back Momville from about 5 to 8:30 or 9. And then I come back and flip between work and mom and household buyer of whatever
Nice.
it is I'm supposed to be doing from kind of 9 to 11 or 9 to 12. And then
Okay.
it repeat.
Wow. You're a hard worker. I love it. So what's your favorite quote?
I kind of have two. There's a store when I was a kid growing up called Successories, and I think you can still find some of them. One of them was around attitude is everything. And I still
Okay.
have the poster. And I just firmly believe that. You hear
Yeah.
all about positive mindset. Well, I didn't hear the mindset word as a kid. It was just, this is how you think and believe. But mindset's a cool buzzword. but I believe it's really all about how you think about approaching something. If it's, it's a glass half full, it's a glass half empty. It's truly the same glass with the same amount of water. Just a matter of which way you're going to look at it. And that's kind of the personal answer. Interestingly, I use a quote in my work front from a privacy point of view. It's actually from Billy Joel. It's all a matter of trust. And that's what I'm really trying to get companies to understand is it's all a matter of trust and how you're conveying whatever you're doing with data to your customers.
That's really good. Yeah, I love that. So what are your hobbies outside of business?
I am a huge health and wellness junkie. I love non-toxic products, healthy food. And
like
so
what give us some examples?
Yeah. So I was diagnosed celiac, a gluten allergy about 5 years ago. And it started with all things gluten. And actually when I started my family, I really went to more non-toxic products. There's so many toxins in our personal care products and then the cleaners, and basically like everything we have in our lives is made with all kinds of terrible things. And I was on a journey to try and find more of the clean, organic, natural, environmentally friendly, all of that would be healthier for me and my family. And then I was diagnosed with the gluten allergy. I'll find a lot of organic food.
Nice.
I try and reduce our sugar. I try and find the cleanest foods I possibly can. Some people, just want to sit and watch TV. I think it's fun to find cool new products. I like going to a grocery store because I can look at all the cool new products.
Right. You can touch it, you can feel it. Right.
So health and wellness is my big one. I do enjoy exercising. I like to bake and just family time.
Great. I love that.
And the outdoors. I like the outdoors.
Yeah, it's amazing how my mom and I just had a conversation about this. She's a health and fitness junkie as well, and she's all about the clean, non-processed food. It's amazing how that stuff contributes to cancer and all kinds of bad stuff. Just all the processed, all the additives, and then I watched this documentary about the different aerosol sprays and perfumes, and just all the, like you said, all the toxins and all the crap that they put in that. It's incredible.
Yes, it's awful, quite honestly. And I actually started a side project called Healthy Life Simplified. And I've just been too busy, honestly, this year to really maintain it. But that was a bit of my outlet.
Oh, nice.
And I found it too hard. I could not double dip in both places. And I kind of gave it up. But if anyone listening who's on social media, you might find Healthy Life Simplified. Feel free to like, and maybe I'll bring it back.
That's great. What's the best business book that you've read?
I was thinking about this one. There's a lot of different business books I've read. One I actually read in business school, and I think it kind of makes a lot of sense, which is The Goal. It's not as cool and sexy as some of the other business books people probably talk about, but it was all about process and bottleneck. And if you kind of think about that, you kind of can't get anything done if you're the bottleneck for everything.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, that book has just always stuck with me. I've read Good to Great, and you can study people like that. There's a great book called Ask by Ryan Levesque, where it's all about asking your customers what it is that they want. I think that one makes a lot of sense too. I read a lot of different ones and take sort of different nuggets from each.
Right.
But those would probably be some of the more interesting ones that at least I can remember, which I guess must mean something.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Okay, last question here. There's one key piece of advice that you could leave our listeners with about achieving success. What would it be?
The first is that life is short, and you should take, I would call it kind of calculated risk, but don't stay in something because you're too afraid. Figure out the right steps to be able to take what you need to get to where you want to go.
I love that. I love that. That's great. Well, Jodi, we really appreciate you coming on. How can our listeners get in contact with you? How can they find your website, all that stuff?
Absolutely. You can find me at redcloveradvisors.com. And on social media, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, also Red Clover Advisors. And then personally, I'm Jodi Hoffman Daniels on LinkedIn. Still has my maiden name. So
Got it.
long ago can find me. But any of those places would be delighted to hear from any of you.
That's good stuff. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much. And guys, we'll see everyone again tomorrow.
Thank you.